And welcome to an episode of Dio Talk. I'm Dio. Let's talk. My guest of the evening is a talented. He's a brain in entrepreneurship. He is the founder and CEO of Scale Up Exec. Ladies and gentlemen, give a warm welcome to Ashis Gupta. Welcome to the show, man. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Really excited for this conversation. Thanks for having me on here.
Man, it's an honor, right? Having you here, somebody who has been such influential in the business industry, especially where you're with Scales Up Exec, right? First of all, what inspired you to do what you do? How did you get started?
How did I get started? I guess I have a kind of interesting life story with entrepreneurship. And it started off maybe with, if you want, I could give you a little bit of my background and how I ended up eventually getting to Scale Up Exec, which is a more recent part of my journey. Um, so I started off after college. A friend of mine and myself, we actually came up and worked on a interesting new technology. I was an electrical engineer in schooling
Oh,
days.
nice,
Yeah.
nice.
And in our last year of college, they have something called senior design, where you kind of use all the things that you've learned and you try and build something out of it. So a friend of mine and
Nice.
myself, we built a little prototype for charging cell phones wirelessly. And this was way before, wireless charging existed. And
Wow.
that actually in that we had a competition in school. It actually did well. Won the first place prize for our
Nice.
senior design
Congrats.
project. So after that, both of us went and did our couple for a couple of years, our first jobs, and then we started thinking, well, why don't we take that technology that we worked very crudely on and make it into a business? And so we actually started, it was one of those like starting in a garage type stories, where we had no money and but we had a lot of passion and enthusiasm.
Yeah, yeah,
And we started doing a bunch of research and raised some money and then actually started making interesting technology out of it and had some really cool breakthroughs on the technical side and eventually came up with something that was very fascinating. Built the company up bit by bit and eventually, after about a couple of years, the company was acquired by Qualcomm, which is a Fortune 500 company out of San Diego. And I was
nice.
25 at that time, so it was it was like a dream come true, when you're 25 years
Dude,
old.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Only 25 years old and everything you've been able to accomplish that far. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was really fun. And even like through that whole journey, when you're young, you feel like you can do anything. You have no
Yeah.
reservations. You don't realize how immature you are actually, which sometimes helps you because you have no fear. You'll just go after and do whatever. After years or decades of working, then you start realizing, oh, maybe I should have a bit more maturity when I approach different things or take a bit
Yeah.
less risk in certain areas. But at that age, it worked out quite well. And so now you actually see wireless charging in most cell phones that you can buy. So we actually developed some of the early technology for that. So
Nice.
yeah, that was quite interesting. After that, I had the chance to work at Apple, and I was in senior management in their iPhone operations team, and that was completely different world. This is a place where in China they have 600,000 people building iPhones. And just to see
Wow.
the factories are like cities. And I actually ended up managing a decent portion of the whole manufacturing supply chain and a $2 billion a year budget and pretty sizable team there at Apple. And it's kind of a cool place to be because Apple is like such an iconic company.
Yeah, yeah.
And through the years, it's developed a very fascinating culture uh, of how people in the team, how managers in the team, how they should think and act and behave, and how they can be driven to really do really fascinating things and push their boundaries beyond what they even thought they were capable of doing. So it's actually a really fascinating place to be in. And I thought of it kind of like a Grand Central Station, like in New York, Grand Central Station,
Yeah.
it's like the place where all the trains come and then eventually they go everywhere else from there. So Apple is kind of like that place where a lot of the top engineers and leaders and thinkers of the world, they all come and work at Apple, and then eventually they go off and do a lot of other interesting things. So because of that, you get to meet amazing leaders. You get to meet very fascinating technical minds, and everybody's working at such a massive scale. So every decision you make has a huge impact. So that was quite fascinating. Eventually, after five years or so at Apple, or 5 or 6 years, I eventually got the entrepreneurial bug again. And I started thinking, what should I do next? And I explored a lot of different paths. Eventually, I came down to acquiring a business. So I acquired a distressed e-commerce business. It was a subscription business in the food and beauty space, and specifically with vegan products. And veganism is something I've been actually connected with for many years, mainly for the animal rights
Oh
and the
yeah,
cruelty aspect. So I've this connected with me a lot, and then it's just a very interesting opportunity, that business. So it was on a decline for the prior couple of years before I acquired it. And so then after acquisition, I spent 4 or 5 years. They're very painful, very difficult years, probably more difficult than
yeah,
anything I've experienced before in turning it around. Everything from the team, the culture, the mindset of innovation instead of what used to be in that company before, which was more of a stagnation mindset, and changing the B2B sales channels and B2C sales channels, and working through all the margins and everything, all aspects of the business. Eventually, bit by bit, it did turn around. It was acquired in 2023. Um, so after that, I had the chance. At firstly, I had a lot of flexibility of what to do next, but I stumbled across a couple of uh, people that I knew that were running businesses, small, medium-sized businesses, where the business has gotten stuck. Either the revenues had plateaued, the founders were burnt out, the teams were burnt out, and
yeah.
they felt like they'd hit a skill set ceiling. They didn't know what to do next. They tried whatever they knew to do, but they weren't able to break out of the pattern that they were in. So I jumped into those businesses, retooled all different aspects of them, from the culture, the teams, the systems, the processes, and their sales channels. And within 3 or 4 months, the businesses turned around. Their revenues grew 30, 40%. But
Wow.
more importantly, their team was no longer burnt out. They felt refreshed, motivated again. And so that allowed for the companies to be revitalized. So because of that, I ended up having more engagements as a fractional COO myself than I could handle. And that's when I started building up a team, which is now ScaleUpExec. So ScaleUpExec, it's a team of, it's still a small team, but it's the gems of COOs that I've come across after having met hundreds of them through the years and interviewed hundreds of them. So these are the few that have scaled companies from 0 to 8, 9 figures, gotten them to exits. They've also been exec level at large companies. So they've been able to navigate both ends of the
Yeah.
spectrum, the startup world and the large enterprise world. And they've worked across many, many different industries and have proven experience. So it's been a really fascinating journey right now for the last several years. We've worked with over 20 businesses and had tremendous success in turning around some very, very difficult situations, like many businesses that were on the brink of bankruptcy,
Hmm.
turning around and getting them profitable and even getting some of them to exits. We've been able to work on companies that are already scaling and are starting to feel all the friction points from getting to the next level. So smoothing them out and making them well-oiled machines. So it's kind of fascinating. We're in the fractional space. You're able to bring in really top-tier talent that typically would not be able to work in a small, medium-sized business, just because small, medium-sized businesses often can't afford or can't attract really top-skilled people, top-tier people. But now they actually will have access to this level of talent that previously they didn't have access to. And that level of talent in just 1 or 2 hours a day can make dramatically different decisions that will change the trajectory of your business.
What is the that drastic change? Is it the sense of experience? So when they come in, they're able to grasp what is the problem, what is the issue, what's working, what's not working, what's manageable, what's not manageable. Is that the drastic change once they come in?
Yeah, and actually it all starts with first understanding what is it that a CEO or a founder wants.
Mm.
Because not every CEO or founder, even if they say they do, not all of them actually want growth in their business. For example, many founders or CEOs, they're happy to have stability in their business where they get a good paycheck, they get good profit at the end of the day, and they want to have some balance between work and life. And that's totally okay. Some other founders or CEOs, they're really interested in growth and they understand that for growth, it's going to require potentially a lot more of their time or their mind space to get there. And they're okay to make that investment. So actually, one of the first things we start off with is just understanding what is it really that a CEO or a founder wants. And especially as it relates to their personal life, their business life and their personal life, how do they intersect? And once you understand that, now you can say, okay, here's where I want to get to, where the business wants to get to, or the CEO or founder wants to get to. Then now I'll deep dive into where are we currently. So we look into everything from the revenue side, the expenses side, the team, the organization, the systems, processes, and we figure out what are the gaps from where we are
Yeah.
currently to where we want to get to. And then now we start, figuring out from all those different gap points, are there a couple that we can really focus on that can move the needle the most? And then we roll up our sleeves and actually do the work of solving those gaps. So yeah, it's now the fractional to answer there's a long way to answer your question. But
No
yes,
worries.
I think now once they go through and solve these gaps, they're actually doing it from their deep experience of having solved these kind of gaps many, many times in the past. So now when they come up with a decision, they're going to get to it much faster and their decisions are going to be better because they've experienced so many similar situations or
Yeah.
contexts in the past.
So, so how does it work? It's it retraining, changing the mindset of the team that's there, or is just now you just come in and teach them what they need to be looking for, how things need to be done. How does it work?
So firstly, there's no one size fits all. There's one thing that is very important for me. I don't like to say, okay, here's the five things we do. Now we're going to do this exactly for every single business.
Hmm.
I instead like to understand what is the context of that business. And then now what are the relevant things that we should do? For example, some businesses, their leadership team is really strong. Their team members are really strong. They already have good skill sets, but maybe the issue is that they don't have the right directional guidance. They're not all focusing on the most impactful work. Maybe they're doing a bunch of work that is low value, and instead we reshift their
Mm,
workspace to be on really high value work and start moving away the things that are low value. But for other companies, maybe their leadership team is not skilled enough, but they have the capability of becoming more
yeah,
skilled. And so now we really focus on upskilling and training and teaching and guiding and coaching
yeah.
the team.
So it's
For other,
it's basically you're before you do anything, you have to come in and see the landscape. What's going on here? You have to be like a detective, investigate what's working. Like figure it out before you make a conclusive decision on where to go or how to move, what to do.
exactly. Yep, yep. No one size fits all.
Right. Well, in your experience, like, is there any one thing that you find across working alongside these business that is like is always the same thing?
One of the things that is very common is that a CEO or founder is usually way too involved in the day-to-day running of a business than they should be. Usually, a CEO or founder should be focused on vision and strategy and spending most of their time on vision and strategy. But we usually find that they're doing a bunch of things that they shouldn't be doing. There's there's a lot of CEO founders who are still spending a lot of time in bookkeeping or spending a lot of time in doing like just a lot of things that they shouldn't be doing. A lot of day-to-day hands-on operations.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just because it's become a habit
Yeah.
and they're
I mean,
just
yeah,
used
they
to it
build
from
the
day one.
business themselves. Yeah.
Exactly. And now maybe it's the right time to see how to delegate some of that. And some of that stuff that they're doing maybe no longer needs to be done by anybody on the team. Not just delegate, but maybe it can be cut out altogether. It's of low
Yeah.
value. So we really, that's one of the things that's very common is the CEO or founder being just way too involved in the
Got it.
day-to-day.
Now, For you mentioned the CEO should be focused on vision and growth, but for the ones that you encounter that like they don't want to grow more than they are, they like the way they are. How do you aid them to be more laid back, right? Because it's kind of difficult if your CEO is the leader and the one who wants to grow, but you encounter those that don't want that.
Yeah. So firstly, then there's the next stage of understanding what is it that they actually want. So
Mm,
for example, some some CEOs or founders, they actually want to be really technical and involved in
mm,
the day-to-day operations. And that's totally okay. If that's where they get their motivation from, that's where they get their energy from, then perhaps they shouldn't be in the CEO role. Instead, they should be in a different role in the company. And it's totally okay to be an owner of a business and not necessarily be the CEO. So we often work on reorienting their position to being something else that allows them to do what they're really excited by and passionate by. For some CEO founders that want stability and they want a good balance between their personal life and their work life, then we often try and get them into more advisory roles in the business rather than daily operational roles. And so we now start building up their leadership team's capabilities so the team can take over
yeah.
and do things successfully and still keep the business going forward. The other thing is that even if a company wants stability, or a CEO or founder wants stability, that doesn't mean that you can copy paste doing what you're doing today for the next year and the company will stay stable. That's rarely the case because the market landscape or competitive landscape always changes. So if you're doing something today exactly like you were doing it a year or two or three ago, there's a good chance that you're going to be on a decline and the company will eventually be on a path to dying. And like for example, there might be a new competitor that comes into your space and now starts taking away business from you. So you can no longer stay stable by doing the same things again and again. So even stability actually requires innovation, thinking of new ideas, testing out new ideas, and then exploring new things. So it's rare that you can just keep on doing the same thing you've been doing again and again and again. Like even let's say you have a business that's been doing really well for the last many years, 5, 7 years, and it's been operating in the same mindset for the last 5, 7 years. And you feel like, okay, if I just keep on doing it's worked for the last 5, 7 years, so why wouldn't it continue working for the next 5 to 7 years?
Mm,
But the world is changing so fast. Like you're already seeing how much automation is coming into every business, how much reduction there is in manual labor that's happening in every business. You're already seeing how much innovation is happening in how people think, how they market, how they manage inventory, how they manage speaking with customers. Like every area of business is changing faster than it's changed in the past. So just because it's worked in the last 5, 7 years doesn't necessarily mean it's going to continue working in the next 5, 7 years.
very true, very true. Now, does your company focus on aiding businesses that sell products, goods, e-commerce, or you guys focus on a uh, diverse businesses?
We're actually all across the board. We've got companies that are in majority of our companies are traditional businesses, quote unquote, which means not tech. We do have a few tech and SaaS companies, but most of our businesses are commercial real estate, construction, medical
Mm,
practices, education, event management. We're also in e-commerce, just all kinds of different businesses. So these are oftentimes the businesses, like let's say you're a 5 million a year business that's in construction. You're probably not going to get access to really top tier talent to join as a COO full time in your business. If you're a startup, a sexy tech startup that's raised a bunch of money and you're doing 1 million a year in revenue, but you're in a sexy tech field, you might actually have capability of getting a really top tier COO full time in your team. But if you're in a traditional industry, it's very tough because firstly, you may not be able to afford it. And then secondly, somebody who's scaled a business to 8, 9 figures, gotten them to exits, et cetera, worked as exec in a large enterprise, they're probably not going to want to work in a less than 50 million a year or less than 100 million a year business just because the compensation firstly won't make sense, and then secondly the type of impact that they can have is going to be smaller. But on a fractional basis, if now I'm a top tier COO and I'm working for three or four or five companies at the same time, it actually is kind of compensation works out, and it's kind of exciting for me as well because now in three, four, five businesses, I can make a dramatic impact very quickly. So
Wow,
it's a
that's
fun place
amazing.
to be. Yeah.
Yeah. What about like in a world that we're in that everything is media? Like, have you able to work with some media companies?
Media companies at the moment, we don't have any media or PR, those companies at the moment.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
But
What
every business has a big aspect to that. Like just the marketing engines, the sales engines in every business are a pretty sizable portion. So we end up working on the other end, not on
yeah.
like on the buying side.
Got it. Got it. What else? What else? Does your company offer for those listening, and those who need agents, assistance in growing or fixing their company?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, it's not necessary to hire an outside person. It's first, you need to hire an outside person when you know that, okay, I want to get to point Z and I'm currently at point A, and my path to get from A to Z is not very clear. I don't know how to get to Z. If I'm a business owner and I know how to get to point Z, that path is already clear, then you don't need somebody else to come in and help you. It's not worth your time or money to invest in having somebody else to come and help you. But if you feel like that path to get to Z is a bit unclear, whether that's on the revenue side, whether that's on your margin side, whether it's on your team, or let's say even your own personal time, you're involved too much in firefighting or daily ops, and you need somebody to come in and help clean it up and make it a well-oiled machine that gets you out of the day-to-day ops, then and you're not sure exactly how to get there, then having somebody who's seen many some similar contexts come in and help you is actually an interesting idea. So we do have most of my team members are COOs, but we recently started building out a group of what I call technical operations managers. So these are people that support a COO, and they do a bunch of tech-enabled stuff. So, for example, our technical operations managers, they're really skilled at software, uh, connecting a lot of different tools together, building AI agents or bots. They're really good at optimizing or automating a lot of processes and systems. So they're actually an interesting complement to a COO. So a COO will come up with a strategy that, okay, we've got a whole bunch of inefficiency in this one area. A lot of manual work is happening in that area. And here's what I want to do to implement a new tool or system or a new process. And then now they can be complemented by the technical operations manager that'll actually do the on the ground work, actually build out, let's say, a new CRM system, add in all the automation workflows, create different AI agents or assistants to help pull all the pieces together and do that work. So that's now like the second group that we're building out because that's what many of our customers have asked for.
It's amazing how technology is taking over the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, things are moving fast, really, really fast, which is fun also because now you can now before companies are hiring more people, before they make a decision to hire more people, they're first asking, what can we optimize with AI? And
Yeah.
can the work that we're doing right now, can we do a bunch of it in an automated fashion before we actually make a decision on hiring a new person? And many companies now, even we're implementing in many companies, before we approve hiring a new person, we're asking, what are we all doing currently that can be done with AI that we're not already doing with AI? And we have to like prove that we can't do
Hmm.
what we're doing with AI right now before we actually hire a new person.
That's that's amazing, but yet worrying because there's so many people that will stay without a job and opportunity of employment because automation is it's like if I can have this do it for me without giving me hassle or lip or a headache, you know, why hire somebody, right?
Exactly, exactly. And managing people is it's
No,
a
trust me,
big job.
it's not a walk in the park. Before I started doing this, I operations manager, but it's more hands on deck rather than computer emails and all that, right? And
Yeah,
it's not easy. It's
yeah,
not easy. It's just uh, it's acquiring skills,
yeah,
and unfortunately, if as time passes by, if you don't, acquire those skills, you'll be, you'll be obsolete.
yeah, absolutely. And just like we were talking about on the business side, if today you're
Hmm.
doing things exactly like you were doing a year ago, then you're probably on a path of dying as a
Yeah.
business. And I think it's the same can be said of us as humans. If today we haven't evolved our learning or capability or capacity versus what we had 1 year ago, then at some point we might get uh, less useful for society.
Yeah.
And so we
Yeah.
also, as humans, have to always evolve. And actually, there's something inherent in our nature as humans that when we evolve or grow or learn, then there's a sense of fulfillment that comes from that as well. It feels energizing. If there's stagnation in our life, if we're not growing or learning or evolving as a human, then I think there's a sense of happiness that is missed, a portion of happiness that can get missed in that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be technical skills. It can be even if we're growing as in how we treat others, if we're growing in how we take care of our environment around us, if we're growing in our ability to control our reactions or our emotions, that also is evolution. It doesn't have to be technical skills. So it can be just all the skills of being a good human.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you. Yeah. Again, you're a 55-year-old man, who worked all his life in construction, right? And that's how you made a living. And there's time for retirement. You got to wait to 65. You
Yeah.
know, sometimes people have this ideology, and we're like, old dogs can't learn new tricks, and they stay stuck there, right? And this is where sometimes people in society shift and now provide a negative feedback to automations that it's created to make your business or your life a little bit more easier.
Mm.
So nobody likes change,
Yeah.
and with change sometimes people resonate with fear,
Yeah.
right, and worriness. So it's difficult to accept, but
Yeah.
like you said, things are changing rapidly.
Yeah. And if the speed of change continues to increase, that's only going to mean that, let's say, 5 years from now, we'll have to learn even faster than today. 10 years from now, the world will be reasonably different than what it is right now.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, I think this is just going to become a mantra of life of always keep evolving.
yeah. I want to ask you, when you were working at Apple, did you get to meet Steve Jobs,
I actually
or that was
joined.
long past?
I joined Apple, I think a year after, or a couple of years. I think it was maybe a year and a half after he passed away. So I got to
Wow.
meet Tim Cook, who's the CEO who joined after Steve Jobs, and many of the other folks on the leadership team. But they're amazing people. And actually, in Apple, it's nice that a lot of the people in the leadership positions, they're also good humans. When you meet them and you hear from them, you can see that they're trying to do good things,
Yeah,
which I think eventually impacts everything in the business and how everybody feels it. And so a
yeah.
lot of people are trying to do good things. They're trying to make good decisions for not just personal decisions, but for the business and for the environment and for the world.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Do you, in your free time, do you still dabble, create stuff, build stuff, in your free time, or are you slowly just focus on scaling businesses and helping these businesses grow?
I actually the probably the other half of my life outside of business is really I have a deep interest in spirituality. And
Okay.
so I actually spend quite a bit of time diving deeper into meditation and into different types of yoga and learning more about the mind and myself and trying to become more empty, inside and
Yeah,
being
yeah.
less filled with clutter and junk. So I've had a lot of clutter and junk and just working through a lot of that and trying to uh, become a bit lighter.
Wow. Can you speak more a little bit on that since we're in a world with mental health is crucial, right? And we
Yeah.
need clarity in our mind, especially when we're creating a passion project or a passion is to create a business, becoming entrepreneurs. To do all those things, you need to have a clear mind because that's in order to it helps you envision what you want for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like how did you find spirituality? How was that for you, that moment? Or it's something that you've always had, just as you grow older, you just became more disciplined?
Spirituality is something, actually, it's started when I was probably 12 or 13, my interest in spirituality. And I think when I was 11 or 12, my first job was a newspaper delivery boy. So I used to go around on my bicycle and deliver. I used to live in England at that time and
Wow.
deliver newspapers. And at that time, I've always had an interest in earning money, but I have no interest in. I have no desire really to buy things. But I have an interest, some reason to earn money. So at that time, all the money that I'd earned, I just saved it all up. And then one time I was going to India to see some of my family, and I thought, okay, all the money that I've earned, I want to donate it somewhere. And I went to when I went to India, I asked around, where can I donate money? And I was 12 or 13 years old at that time, so I didn't really have much clue of things. And so one of my uncles, he said, "Well, I don't know exactly where, but I know somebody who might be able to help you figure out where to donate." And so he actually took me to this temple, and in the back of the temple, they had some rooms, and we went into one of the rooms. And in that room, there was this old man, maybe in his 90s, very thin and frail. But when I looked at his eyes were just a light. They were bright, and his face had like this radiance in it. And so it felt like he was something unique or special. And when I met him, he asked me, I told him I want to donate some money. And do you have any suggestion of where I could donate? And he said, well, if you were to give me that money and you knew that I was going to throw it down the well, would you still give it to me? And like I mentioned, I don't really have much attachment to money. So I said my first immediate reaction was yes, no problem. And he said that's the correct answer. And from then on, he actually started guiding me and giving me a whole bunch of different suggestions and different ways of looking at things. And he actually also gave me this book. I don't know if you've heard of this book by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich. It was
Yeah.
a it was like that first self-help book from early 1900s. And he said, take this book and make it your Bible. And that book, I started reading and getting deeper into it, and I started building out different things that I wanted in myself to achieve. And that I actually lived through that. Like I had a lot of, I would repeat affirmations for myself for the next 20, 30 years. And I had different things that I wanted to get to. And some of those things actually worked out. Some of them didn't work out as I had envisioned. But I realized eventually that the journey of what did actually happen in my life was fun, really interesting. And even though I achieved some of those things and some of them I didn't achieve, I still really enjoyed the journey. And so now, actually, as in my recent years, I'm trying to undo the things that I'd built up for myself through that book. Where there in that book, it was about envisioning what you want, what your desire is, and then really working towards that. Now, instead, I'm trying to undo desires and instead allow life to flow. And one of the key first steps is to acceptance. And
Mm,
acceptance is a very loaded word, actually, once you start diving deeper into it. Accepting who I am, all the good, bad, and the ugly in me, accepting the situations of what is happening in my life, accepting the relationships that I have, accepting, let's say if somebody speaks to me and it normally builds up some reaction in me. Instead, accept how they were to me and be very conscious and aware of what's happening inside of me. Accept that it's happening if some reaction is coming, but be able to observe it and watch it. And when you observe and watch and you're aware of your reactions, then over time they start subsiding. Your reactions start subsiding, and you start becoming more and more even keeled and accepting of whatever is happening in your inside of you and around you. So I think all of this is to really start cleaning out that inner space instead of just being a reactionary being, instead being
Yeah.
a conscious being.
So it's like if somebody was degrading or treated you poorly, you come to face with that person, and instead of reacting out of hatred, of anger, an emotional way, you accept the things for where they are and keep moving.
Yeah, it's more about being conscious of how you, so like choosing what you're going to say or choosing how you're going to be at that moment rather than reacting. When we're reacting, we're not choosing usually. It's usually coming, it's like, a fight or
Impulse.
flight or something. Like it's just something,
Yeah.
all the inbuilt patterns that we have that come out when we react. But instead of those inbuilt patterns driving us, can I choose that maybe in some situations it is appropriate for me to say, hey, by the way, I observed that you talked with me in this way, and this is how it's made me feel. Can I request that going forward that you speak to me with a different angle or different mindset? So like now you're actually choosing consciously how you want to be, rather than immediately flaring up and saying, "Why did you talk to me like that? That's not right." And then just that ends up leading to rarely a positive interaction. Sometimes, actually, when a situation comes up, you might choose that I'm not going to say anything back. I'm just going to pause. I'm going to leave this space or go somewhere else, and maybe 10 minutes later when I feel like I'm much more settled, then maybe I'll talk.
Re-engage or who? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's wisdom. That's wisdom, right? I mean, yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm happy you're figuring it out. You're trying to understand more of yourself on a daily basis.
yeah, but easier said than done because reactions
Hey,
and
trust me,
patterns are so
brother.
deep.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like you said earlier, it's the journey. You got to go through the ringer, like
Yeah,
if you don't go through it, how would you know?
yeah,
Some people, some people would rather not go through it and stay in that feeling or that place and where they 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 want to feel that outburst,
yeah,
you know, and stay there rather than go through it and try to understand yourself, what you like, what you don't like, what can you tolerate, what you don't want to tolerate, what can you move forward when stay still.
yeah,
And that's very important. That's accountability and acceptance as a person. And that just shows that like you're comfortable no matter where you go.
yeah.
Shows
And
character.
yeah, and I think one thing that I've learned through life, like I've had some very big highs and I've had some very big lows. I've taken a lot of risks. Some of them worked out, some of them didn't work out. So I've been through like a lot of situations on both ends of the spectrum of good and bad and ugly. And one thing that I've realized through all of that is that, firstly, there's a solution and path to everything, even the
Mhm.
most difficult situations that you feel like you're in a dead end. There's actually always a path, and nothing lasts forever. Even a dead end, a place that you're in that feels like a dead end, doesn't last forever. Everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So even all the good times, they have a beginning and an end. Even the bad times have a beginning and end. So firstly, just know that life moves, keeps moving. So you're never going to be stuck, and you'll always be able to find a path and a solution and a way out. So yeah, I think that's also helped me a lot, just to know that if I'm in a really tough situation right now, this is temporary. This will pass also. and I will find a way out of it. I will find a solution and it will happen. And I've seen that time and time and time again now across all the years.
I hear that. If there's somebody trying to connect with themselves, understand themselves, spirituality, any advice you can give them to start?
Yeah, I think first is just start with looking inside of you and accepting. Don't try and analyze, like, why am I this way? Why am I not that way? Instead, just understand who you are and accept it. I think that's the
Mhm.
first step. Come to terms with it. It's okay. Like maybe I have a bunch of flaws, quote unquote. That's okay. Everybody has flaws. Who doesn't have flaws in this world? Let's say there's a bunch of things that I want in life that are not good things necessarily. That society thinks are not good things. That's okay. Accept it. Just instead of like beating yourself about it or thinking negatively about yourself from it. Um, I think self-acceptance is probably the first place to start, and that starts with diving deeper inside of you.
To that, man. Anish, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for sharing your story. Incredible journey, incredible man. I wish you nothing but the best. Before we go, tell the people they can find you, find your company, get your service, get your help, most importantly.
Yeah, yeah. I'm my company's name is ScaleUpExec. So you can always search on Google or go to our website directly, scaleupexec.com, and you can actually directly book time to speak with me, even if you're not necessarily looking for a fractional CEO or something for your company, but you want to bounce ideas off. I'm happy to connect and speak, and you can actually choose time right from the website. So I think it's important, like once you've learned some things in life, that you can help others in their journey as well. So I'm
I'm into
available
that.
to support.
The website,
Yep, scaleupexec.com.
boom, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. If you need the help, make sure you go reach for his help. It's there. That's why he's building up this amazing company to help business owners and entrepreneurs like yourself. So make sure you go check them out. Make sure you go like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, DIOTALK TV. Also, if you love our channel and you love what we've been doing and it inspires you, uh, click the link below in the description and buy me a coffee. Have a good night, guys. I'm out.